There was a time when investors needed accurate information about the finances of the companies they invested in to be able to, in fact, invest rationally and based on assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of the company going forward. That was, in many ways, the whole impetus behind the first act, the Companies Act in the 1930s, and behind the methodology that was developed by the very early investors, notably Graham, the Dean of Wall Street. But companies and markets have moved a long way since. We now take it for granted that the financial data that's being presented to us is an accurate reflection of the underlying financial data. But all of us recognize as investors that financial data are not the only important sets of data that we need to take into account when we invest. I don't think this is anything new. I think investors have always known that. But in the absence of any accurate financial data, they concentrated solely on that. Today, as the world becomes more integrated and more global, and increasingly as companies on stock markets no longer use stock markets as the main mechanism for, in fact, raising more capital, we are very aware as international investors that other factors, reputation, sustainability, the way we deal with the environment, the treatment of our workforces, and of our customers, all of these actually affect the companies that we run and work in and how they continue to grow and operate. And as investors, if we want to invest in companies, these are the factors that we also would want to take into account. That is why the concept of an integrated report is so very important. That it's being recognized as so very important is clear, because there are calls all over the place globally for people, in fact, to take into consideration items other than pure finance. What has not been achieved is an acceptance of a single standard of how we, in fact, report on matters that are not purely financial. We know that matters not purely financial now constitute the majority of the influences that affect a company's price. And therefore, these are the ones that we should pay attention to if we are, in fact, going to invest successfully for the long term. And so we should be able to come up with a set of rules and standards that are the same and acceptable on a global basis. I hope that in our discussions we continue to go forward and the excellent work of the IIRC actually continues to do what it does, because it's a beacon that calls us to think of this not so much as a nice to have, but as an essential toolkit that investors, professional investors and others, investors need to have if they're going to invest rationally in companies. Thank you.